Welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the Cambridge International AS and A-Level English Language Paper 2 Writing, Variant 2-2, May-June 2020. So this paper is divided in two sections. So the two main sections, we have imaginative writing, section A, and then section B, we have writing for an audience. And each of the sections, they each have 3 questions that we are given, and we can choose in each section one question that we would like to answer. And the instructions are up here. So for the question that we choose for each section, we must write 600 to 900 words for our answer. Okay, and the way that I will handle this video is that I won't actually write an answer for each question specifically. What I would like to do is I would actually like to have you comment in the comment section which questions you would like me to have a full, complete, full mark answer for. So I would just ask you to choose one question from section A and then one question from section B that you're interested to know what a very great answer would look like for you to get full marks. And based on how popular the choices are, I'll make another video where I will walk you through a complete solution. But for this video, what I will be doing is for each question, I will give you tips and tricks on how to approach each question individually and how to try to figure out what you're going to write to get all your marks. Okay, so let's start with section A, and let's start with question 1. So for question 1, we are being asked to write a story which begins with the following sentence. Anna hesitated, wondering if she had made the right decision. In your writing, create a sense of suspense and drama. So here I highlighted in blue and black what the question is asking me to do. So here in blue, I highlighted the nature of the text that I'll be writing. So the nature of the text, it's a story, and also it's a story about wondering if the right decision was made or not by a girl named Anna. And in black, I also underlined the extra things that the marker is looking for in my answer. So here, the marker is looking for the answer for the text that we write, the story, to have suspense and drama. Okay, so that's the first thing that I would do when I look at this first question specifically. All right, and then let's go ahead and just write a bit of notes on how we can approach this. So we have section A. Okay, question 1. So our question 1, we have the sentence, Anna hesitated. Wondering if she made the right decision. Okay. Right. So that's our sentence that we have for sure. And then here another thing that I want to do is take a look at what is suspense and what is drama exactly, because we need to know, right? That's what they're looking for. So when I think of suspense, I think of, again, the example with movies. So when you're watching a horror movie or thriller, you usually don't know what's coming next. There's usually a very creepy person that's hiding behind a wall, and you don't know when they're going to pop up and they're going to scare you, or you never know, right? So that's what suspense is. So suspense is you don't know what is coming next. So you create that emotion, that feeling rather, of surprise, anticipation. Okay. And then also we have a lot of uncertainty. So going back to not knowing, so there's uncertainty. So that's how I would define suspense. All right, and the next thing that we're looking at for this question is drama. So how can we define drama? So drama, I would define it as it's a roller coaster of emotions. So you're happy, you're sad, there's a lot of things that are not normal things that are happening, and everything's blown out of proportion. And if somebody's crying, they're really crying. If they're laughing, they're really laughing. So it's just over the top, right? So here, roller coaster of emotions. We also have anger, happiness, sadness, frustration, etc. And then unexpected events. So things that are out of the ordinary. Okay, so this is what we have within question 1. So we have our main sentence, and then we have the extra things that the markers are looking for. Suspense and drama. So we identified the components of the question and of the story, so the text, the story that we're going to write. Okay, and so now we have to brainstorm. So we have to find ideas of how we're going to create something that is going to be cool and that will get us all the marks that we need. Okay, so we have a story about someone who made a decision and doesn't know whether or not it's the right one. So the first thing that we need to figure out is, what is this decision? Okay, so here in purple, let's try to figure out ideas of a decision that would make sense. So here, I'll just write it here in point form. So the first idea of a decision that we can think of is, let's ask, so a decision, so we must ask a question. So one thing could be study for a test or not. Okay, so that's a question. Do I study for the test or do I not? And if I don't study for the test, did I make the right decision? And if I do study for this test, did I make the right decision? Okay, and here let's just say that for the sake of this brainstorming session, Anna decided not to study for the test. Okay, so what are things that could follow from deciding to not study for the test? Then Another thing that can follow a dilemma, other questions. So if I don't study for the test, do my parents find out that I didn't study? And if they do find out, what are they going to do about it, right? Another thing that we can ask ourselves, is the test hard? In the end? So if I don't study for the test, maybe the next day I do get to the test and I'm like, oh, wow, that was close. I didn't study, but turns out the test was easy and I didn't need to study. So that's good for me, right? So is the test hard or is it easy? Oops. Okay. And then another question is, if I don't study for the test, maybe I take the test and I'm waiting for the results. So are the results good? Good or bad? Okay, so you see, we started with one decision, so this is our decision, and other questions are coming from, they derive from that one decision that was made. Okay, second thing, so we have to get a little bit creative. So a second decision that we can think about is, what would happen if you took your parents' car without asking them and without them knowing that you took it? So what if Anna took Anna takes parents' car without them knowing. So let's say that's the decision that she made. So what can happen from this decision, and that we can elaborate on during our story? So if you take your parents' car and they don't know it, and you're young and you don't have a lot of years of experience of driving, do you crash the car? So does she crash the car? Does she crash the car? And then another thing that can happen is, if she takes the car and she doesn't want anyone to know that she takes it, what if maybe an aunt or an uncle, so an aunt or an uncle sees her? So okay. And then another thing that's pretty dramatic that can happen is, so if you take the car, let's think, what else can happen? Does the police stop you? So does the police stop Anna while driving? And why? Okay, so see, already we have two examples. Another pretty dramatic one, a decision that many people face in their life, is just pretty scary. So Anna sends a message to her crush to tell him that she, well, to tell him, to tell him how she feels. There you go. So that's another idea. And the main question, so the main drama after she does that is, does he feel the same? There we go. So here already you can see that just by asking these questions, you're probably wondering, how would the story look like? So already there's suspense. Then with all of the situations here, there's drama, because all of these are pretty extreme and they're not your typical normal daily activities that, you know, an average person experiences every day. So these are situations that are pretty high in stress or excitement, depending on how they end, right? So that's the whole point of this first question, creating suspense and drama. So then now, if we want to get a little bit specific on how do you create really good suspense. So creating really good suspense is, you're asking all these questions, you're making the reader ask themselves all these questions, and then during the writing of the story, you're taking your time to get all of these questions answered. So you're going to make them wait for it, and you're building up that suspense and building up that tension, and they just want to know what happens, and you're just taking your sweet time before there's any resolution. Okay, so that right there was question 1, section A. Just a little bit of ideas. Okay, and now we can move on to question 2. So question 2 is asking us to write 2 contrasting diary entries. So we had a story here, now it's a diary entry. So 2 contrasting entries of 300 to 450 words each. The first by a person setting out on a long expedition. So that's the first entry. And then the second entry is the same person arriving home safely. And in our writing, the additional stuff that they're looking for is adventure and atmosphere. Okay, take a look. Question 2. So we have setting out for long expedition and coming back safely. Okay. And the additional things that we're looking to highlight in the text is adventure. So first, adventure and atmosphere. Okay, so first let's take a look at adventure. So when we think of adventure, again, an adventure is not a casual day of just waking up and going to school or going to work and then coming back home and eating dinner and sleeping. It's not your regular routine. So an adventure is a little more, there's a little more spiciness happening that day. There's a little more of, whoa, this is not a normal day. Something different happened. So it's an adventure. Unusual events. And then we're also looking at obstacles to overcome. So usually in an adventure you have a series of obstacles. So let's say you have an adventure where you're trying to climb a mountain. So there's usually going to be a few things to overcome. Oh, I'm climbing the mountain, and then now there's a mountain lion. I have to fight the mountain lion. And then after, oh, it's really windy and it's raining and I don't have an umbrella. So there's just things that you have to go through before you get to your end goal of the adventure. Okay, and then the next thing that we're looking at is atmosphere. And when I think of atmosphere, I automatically think of mood. So you have to create a mood for the marker, the person who's going to be reading. You have to bring out feelings. So maybe that feeling is fear, that feeling is sadness or pity, but you have to set a whole entire mood for them. That's what they're looking for. Okay. So we can take a look again, like the other question, at examples. So here we have two parts. Setting out for a long expedition, and then coming back safely. So here we have a before and after. So before, we're going to write one entry of when we're getting ready to go, and then also after we came back. So if we first take a look at the first thing here, when we're getting ready to go. So when you're getting ready to go somewhere, you're usually, there's a few ways that you can feel because you haven't experienced it yet, right? So it's just your imagination. You're wondering, how is this thing that I'm about to do going to feel like, right? So you're just describing your expectations of the adventure and as well how you feel about going on that expedition. So here, if I had to get an idea, so an entry, and by entry I mean diary entry, about how fearful you are in regards of the expedition, plus expectations of how you would like things to happen. Okay, so here you would say, I am so scared for what I'm about to do, and then you would list the things that you're about to do, and you would say, I hope that this happens like this, and hopefully this, and maybe this will turn out to be great. So that would be an entry. Dear diary, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and this is how I feel. And despite me feeling this way, I hope that this. So that's one way. Second way is you can do the opposite. So it would be a diary about how excited to go on expedition, plus how confident you are about a good outcome. Oops, right here. So how excited you are to go on the expedition, and how confident you are about the good outcome. Okay, and then here on the way back, so on the way back I'll use 1 and 2 so that they're complementary to each other. So complementary. So this means the entry for 1, going to the expedition, and then this is for same idea, coming back following this. So if when you were leaving you're fearful and you're hoping that things go well, so a cool way to go about this is entry about, so you came back safely, right? Because the question says that you came back safely. So about coming back safely, but you come back safely, but you had a horrible time. And so you had a horrible time, and your expectations were not reality. Okay? 2, so for this idea, so you were excited and you were confident. So you can also think that when you came back safely is, you could go with this as well. So same thing for part 2. So you can say that things actually didn't go well and you were wrong for being confident. Or you can also maybe say, go the route of, I was right the whole time and it was great. Or here, if we want to be funny, so, oops. Diary entry about how things were even better than you had expected. Okay, so yes, it's a few ideas. This is a little bit tough for me because there's so many possibilities. So if you guys choose for me to write a full answer for this question here for part A, of the paper, it'll be interesting, but there's so many possibilities. Okay, and then now if you guys also want to take a look at more specifically ideas of expeditions, so here we'll do it in blue. So if we just look at the expeditions themselves, so one idea is finding a treasure. So finding a treasure, this is common. Or 2, it could be rescuing someone. Okay, so what's another challenge that you can think of? So finding a treasure, rescuing someone, also maybe moving. Oh, not moving because you have to come back, right? Also living abroad for a while. Or maybe if you're more into the whole action genre, then maybe chasing a criminal. Okay, so these are all ideas of expeditions, some challenge that you could take on. Okay, so that is question 2. Now let's take a look at 3. So I find 3 a bit interesting, honestly. It's asking us to write a descriptive piece called On the Space Station. And in your writing, focus on sound, movement, and color to help your reader imagine the scene. So I think that this question may be, for me personally, it's actually the toughest, because for this one you need to use really your imagination. And I think that since this is a setting in space, I don't know about you, but I've never been to space. I've only seen pictures or watched certain things on TV about space, and my knowledge about space is not that great. So I think that if you were to go with this question, it's a little tough one, especially since it's a descriptive piece. And so the setting is in space, it's a descriptive piece, and it's asking us to focus on sound, movement, and color. And it's asking us to make the reader imagine. So this one is pretty tough. Okay, let's try to write down ideas. So question 3. On the space station. So here there's a few things that I want to look at with you. So first, let's define, I think it's important to define space station. So a space station is, so I would say that it's sort of a home, home to astronauts in space. Okay, so that's where the astronauts stay when they're in space. Well, the largest place where they can stay, apparently. And then here, this one is a little bit special. for this question, because we're looking at sound, we're looking at movement, color. Okay, so it's descriptive. And we're also trying to help the reader imagine. Oops. Slash descriptive. Okay. So when we're looking at sound, movement, and color, so here it means that our vocabulary has to be quite rich to really try to reach a lot of good marks, right, from the marker. So here when I think of sound, how can we do this? I'll use a different color. Okay, so the first thing that I would do is when I think of sound, I would just list. So when I think of sound, what do I think of? I think of course, so loud, quiet, and sounds that are making me think of a space station. So if I'm in space, are things loud? Are things quiet? And I think of expression. So if we're thinking of quiet, I think quiet as a mouse. Also think of faint. So a sound can be faint. It's quiet. So I would just go ahead and I would list a lot of words, or try to think in my head a lot of words that can represent the sounds that can be in space. But that's pretty tough because to think of on the spot, unless you've been to space before. Okay, is there wind? Not too sure. Okay, next is movement. So same thing was with movement I would do. So with movement, I think that in space, I don't know why, I think that in space things for me seem to be steady. So there's not a lot of commotion. Things just move slow and flow. So steady, flow, slow. And also when I think of space, I think of automatic. Because just the way that the planets move by themselves, there's nobody pushing the planets, right? Or just things are just automatic. Or I think of when you're walking in space, maybe it's slow motion because of the lack of gravity. I'm thinking of, can you jump in space? Can you crawl? Can you run? So all these are good words that you could use for your text to show that you're touching on that aspect of movement. Okay, and then color. Okay, so when I think of space, what words represent color and that's related to space? So definitely I think of black, because you have black holes, right? So black holes. Another thing, we can also have blue, navy blue. Also bright colors. We also have electric colors, right? Electric, synonym of really bright. And then this one is an interesting word. So here we have psychedelic. And psychedelic, this word means really like bright and weird patterns. So kind of like really weird looking and a bunch of colors together and bright. So it's kind of like hypnosis, right? So you look at it, it's just abstract. So that's bright and unusual. Can't spell. Unusual pattern. Forgive my handwriting, guys. I'm gonna try to get better with my handwriting. Okay, so here I would just think or list down really quickly a bunch of colors to make me think. And for this one, the last thing that I could note is that you're trying to help the reader imagine. So you have to be very descriptive. That's why I would take the time to just try to really note down all these things so that when I'm writing, I can just look back and try to see how I can mix and match and come up with something to write. But definitely question 3, again, I think this one's challenging. I think this one you need a lot of imagination, or you need to have watched a lot of movies that have to do with space to try to come up with something on the spot. Okay, so that's question 3. So that was part A, section A of paper 2, of paper 2 writing. Okay. Great. So now we're going to take a look at tips and tricks for section B. So section B, your class recently, question 4, your class recently went on a school trip to a farm. Your teacher asked you to write about it for the school magazine. Write a report describing what you learned on the trip and evaluating how useful the trip was. Okay. So here for question 4. School trip to a farm. Okay, so we're going to need to write a report about a school trip to a farm. Okay, and then they're asking us for what? What you learn, and also how useful. Okay, so this is writing for an audience, right? So this is not a creative writing piece anymore. So it's different. It's more informative. So how could we approach this? So when I think of a school trip to a farm, so we need to think about the animals, right, that are at the farm. So the first thing that I would do is I would say, okay, list of farm animals. That's the first thing I would do personally. So list of farm animals. Okay, so we have cows, goats, chickens, pigs, horses, and so on, right? So then the next question that I would ask myself is, did I go to maybe a farm where all these animals are there, or maybe a farm where there's one specific type of animal and I just learned about one specific type of animal? And when I think of one specific type of animal that's just very useful in general in the world, I think of bees, because bees make honey, right? So that is also up for you to decide how you would like to approach this. Do you want all the animals to be there or just one? And it also depends on what you know about which animal. So maybe there's an animal here that I didn't list that you know a lot about. So you could do that. And then when you think of how useful the trip to the farm was, then it's how useful is basically the animals that are there. So what can you think that's special about these animals? So here for our brainstorming session, I will just say, for example, for me, I would choose bees. So let's say we went to a bee farm. Okay, so then my next step in my brainstorming session would be to list why are bees important. Okay, so because of honey, they make honey. So that's the most important thing that bees do in my eyes. They make honey. And what is honey good for? So honey is good in your tea. Honey is good when you're sick. So if you live in a country where it gets cold, honey is actually good for to prevent colds, right? Getting a cold. And then another thing that honey is good for is for allergies. So if you live somewhere like me where there's a lot of change in season, I know that usually when the seasons are changing, because the honeys take their bees, the bees get their honeys from flowers, and flowers depend on season, depending on which flower is going to be there based on the season. Then if you actually take some honey in a specific season, it can get you immune to certain things that's in nature. So it avoids you getting seasonal allergies. So that's just knowledge that I have because I have seasonal allergies. But see, you could just go on and list things that you would talk, and you would just add all of that inside your report, which is what the question is asking you to do. What did you learn and how useful is it? Okay, so that was the tip for section B, question 4. Take a look at 5. So 5. Last month, a new sports and leisure center opened in your local area. Write 2 contrasting reviews of the center, which will be published on a website called Local Matters. One of the reviews is very positive about the new center, and the other is negative about it. Okay. So, question 5. So there's a new sports. Oops, I cannot write. A new sports and leisure center. Okay, and then They're asking us for contrast. Again, I cannot. Contrast. Okay, so when I think of contrast, I think of black versus white, night versus day. Okay, so I think of differences. Okay, and then so here, that's what I highlighted, contrasting reviews, and then very positive and negative. So positive means good, negative means bad. Okay, so here I'll do positive, and then here negative. So this one, I think this one is personally what I would choose, because I think that this one could go by really quickly, and there's a lot of ideas that you can choose from. Okay, so let's look at positive first. So there's a new sports and leisure center, and what can be good about it? So the first thing that comes to my mind is when there's a new, so at these community centers, they usually have pools, right? So I'm thinking of a review about a kid who enjoys, who enjoys the pool at the center. Okay, so that's first idea. So there's a kid who enjoys, so he's writing a review about, I love the pool, and I've been swimming there every day, and I don't have a pool at home, so I'm happy I can go here and use the pool, and it's great, and I swim with my friends, and I met this person, and my arms are getting strong. So just a kid talking about how much he loves the pool. Another idea is a parent who is happy about safe place for children to play. Okay. And another thing I can think about, my third idea could be so a person who enjoys fitness class. Let's say free, because everybody loves free things. So a person who enjoys free fitness class at the center. Okay, they can say, I lost so much weight and I'm healthy again, and this is what I needed, and the instructors are really cool and they're friendly and they care about me. So yeah. And then negative. So negative, I think when you have a new community center that opens near your house, usually it means that there's more people that are going to hang out in that area, and maybe it means a lot of noise, right? So I'm thinking of an older person, so an elderly person complain about noise. So An elderly person can say, I've been living here for the past 50 years and it was always quiet. And now that the center has opened, I am so angry and so upset because every day the children make noise. And, just an angry person being bitter. Okay, second thing, so idea about something that could be negative from a community center. So, this one gets a little bit political. So depending on how much you know about politics, maybe you can talk about taxpayers. Are unhappy because maybe opening a center means that it's free, so there's free services, so it means that employees have to get paid, and maybe it's the government that is funding it, and when the government funds something, sometimes it comes out of people's taxes. So that's how free things are free, because we secretly pay for it sometimes, and just some people don't know. So this one is pretty deep, but it's just an idea, right? Another thing, a third idea for negative could be another negative idea could be that maybe they built the community center on top of sacred land, right? Of sacred land, and people are angry about it. So center was built on top of sacred land. Or another thing is maybe it's too hot. Okay, so those are ideas for you for question 5. Right. So final question. Look at 6. You have decided to organize an event to clean up your local area. You are going to give a speech to students in your school to talk about the benefits of looking after the local area and to encourage students to participate in the event. Write the text for the speech. In your writing, create a sense of importance, of taking pride in your local area. Right, so here, speech. So for question 6, event the local area. Okay, and here we're looking at encouraging, and we're also looking at taking pride. Okay, so for encouraging, when I think of encouraging, I think that you are trying to convince and motivate So you're trying to tell people this is why you should do it, and come on, you can do it, and you should care, and you have everything it takes, right? And then taking pride is more of why you need to feel the need and want to do this. Okay, so taking pride is you're doing it and you're happy, and you're happy to do it. You feel that you need to do it, and you want everybody to know that you're doing it, right? So it gives you a feeling of satisfaction. Okay, so you're trying to create satisfaction. Okay, so ideas for that is you're writing a speech to convince students. So you're convincing your peers to attend an event where they're going to clean, right? So for this speech here, I think that this will definitely be heavy on knowing what's going on around the world. So with the situation, how global warming, the trees aren't like they used to be, and there's a lot of pollution around and what it's doing to us. So I think that this topic is definitely centered around pollution and what we know about pollution and how it affects us. So good questions to ask ourselves while we're writing the speech is, how does it affect us? How does it affect us now and in the future? Okay, so now and in the future. And then also in this speech, we need to think about who is to blame. For the world now and the future. Okay, so I think this is very important, especially when it comes to pride as well. Because if you tell somebody, hey, listen, this person is saying that you can't do it and you're going to ruin everything, and if you don't do this, then this might happen. So that person can get prideful, and then they might say, oh, who are you to tell me I can't do something? And then they might want to do whatever you're telling them that they cannot do just to prove you wrong. So you're using reverse psychology. So sometimes I think that's something that I would definitely use in the speech. I would try to hit people's pride by telling them that maybe older generations think that the younger ones are lazy and we don't do anything and we can't do it better than them. So that's definitely one way that I would go to motivate people to take pride, because people are usually motivated by selfish reasons. So I would try to press on that button. And then encouraging, you can say, when I think of encouraging, I'll write this, so here. So for encouraging, I think of maybe free drinks and free food after cleanup. Okay, maybe prizes as well. So these are things that are encouraging. Everybody is encouraged to go somewhere if there's going to be free food, or free drinks, right? I'm sure everybody has gone to a wedding before where they don't know anybody, but they're excited to go to the wedding because they know it's it's going to be free food and free drinks, and as well prizes. So maybe if you participate, then we're going to do put all the tickets in a bucket and take out a name, and someone's going to win a prize. So yes, these are things to keep in mind for question 6. All right, and I think that is it. That's what we have. Please don't forget to comment down below and choose 2 questions, one from each section, that you would like for me to completely solve, just so that I can show you what a full solution would look like that would get all the marks. Okay, but I do thank you, of course, for getting to the end of this video. I appreciate the time, and yes, comment, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.